people's point of comparison was their immediate community. So like the people at your school, the people in your actual face-to-face network, your family and friends, but it was kind of like a tangible crowd of people that you would encounter throughout your, routine. And that what social media does is that it exposes you to all these other hundreds and thousands and millions of people, which kind of speaks to your information overload. But what it says is that the evolutionary brain, like there's unconscious structures of the brain that have evolved over time to place you within a social hierarchy. And one of the things that it said is you could have average people in the 1980s who went around and compared themselves to the other kids at their school. And everyone looked like they were kind of about the same. And there was some kids on the top and some kids on the bottom, but most people were like in this middle. And that the kids on the top are the ones you would kind of stereotype as the ones on the top, and the same with the ones on the bottom. And that there's like this middle class, and that the brain was kind of like in a situation where in general, the brain was saying, hey, compared to all these other people, we're doing okay. We look okay. Our bodies are okay. Our, aptitude for intelligence and success is, okay. And when you compare yourself into like your geographic peers, you kind of felt fine. And they said that what's happening to like 11, 12, 13, 14-year-olds and up is that when you're exposed to all this shit on social media, one of the things that you're apprehending constantly unconsciously is you're placed in a social pecking order that's way bigger than your region. So you're suddenly exposed to people that are immensely wealthy, immensely like attractive by normative standards, have like amazing bodies, and they've accomplished amazing things. And they're kind of spitting back in the mic saying how, easy it is. And I always make fun of like the wealth mindset shit to my students, even though sometimes I kind of fucking like it and I don't judge them for liking it because a lot of them are into that shit. And so part of what your brain does is even when you think you know what you know, your brain is slotting you into like a new social hierarchy through all the social media stuff, so that you consciously might be saying, I like that, fuck that, I like that, fuck that. But your brain is saying, where do you fit in? And they say that there's a lot more mental health problems among the young because the young are comparing themselves to these people who are globally all over the world, kind of like a global 1% across all categories. And instead of comparing yourself to your geographic peer and thinking, I'm okay, everyone thinks they're on the bottom. And what this video asserted is that from like an evolutionary standpoint, so this is not true in every case, it tends to be true, is that when people's brain, not necessarily even them, when their brain perceives them to be on the bottom of the social hierarchy, they start to feel anxious and depressed. And that depression can lead to any number of other kind of cascading mental health issues, all the way down to self-harm. And so part of what they're saying was, that this technology has exposed us to like a class system, a hierarchical system, and we no longer know where we fit. And the other thing that I just want to point out is that what I tell my students is part of the reason that all these like psychology websites never quite put the finger on what FOMO is that we always perceive FOMO to be some sort of like individualized mental health response, like anxiety response to like this fear of missing out, which is really a code for what did I do wrong in my life? Why do other people get to travel? How come they're eating so well? Where'd they get all this time and resources? It's that highlight reel thing that you see on social media so much. And so the class system that's at work, I always tell them, is what you're really being exposed to isn't just the fact that other individuals have a highlight reel. What you're being exposed to is the most unequal society that's ever existed. United States inequality right now, worse than the Gilded Age. The only comparison is chattel slavery. And then we're the most unequal society on the planet by the measures that I've found recently, like the data. Like we're way worse than China, even when you account for some of China's inequalities. Like we're the worst. We're the worst on the planet, and we're the worst that we've ever been. And I tell them, because we're the richest country in the world and we're the richest country that's ever existed, what you're being exposed to is a class reality. And that part of what we're panicking about is that we're understanding this vast inequality, but it's coming at us like displaced. It's coming at us through these other channels. So to loop it back to the hunters and all these other people looking for clout, I think part of what's also happening is they're not just punishing the moral perverts of society, which historically that's kind of always happened. People will enforce norms through vigilante violence. they're doing it all over the world right now. We don't even have to, I can list 10 countries where that's going on. Maybe not
Right.
to the pedophile hunting, but to other norms that are being violently enforced by vigilante acts. But what I think is kind of striking about it is that the structure of it is, let's make sure that we're not on the bottom. So that when you beat the shit out of somebody for whatever perceived crime that they're committing, you're asserting your place in the social order. And I think that that starts to throw us towards, we don't have to go here now, but that starts to throw us towards, why the fuck is Trump administration abducting students? You know what I mean? And that part of what I see happening is a parallel to the hunting that you just described. They're hunting students. And part of the perversity of this hunt is not that these students have really violated any of the laws that they've been claiming that those students are violating. The evidence so far that's been presented is absurd. It's thin. And the laws they're using to revoke visas is stupid and absurd. And I can't imagine it holding up in court. But that's another question. The point that I'm making, my final little loop here, is that when MAGA sees the hunting of the students, they're identifying with this new like ICE Trump thug elite, this barbarism that's being institutionalized into these state federal agencies and then being wielded against like mostly vulnerable people. And what they perceive to be happening is that they can see we're not on the bottom anymore. And I think that the reason that's so important for them to see that and to feel validated by the violence that the Trump administration is